When you sit down at a theater to see a critically acclaimed film, it's not uncommon to feel stunned by the high level cinematography and expert visual language deployed by the filmmaker. We go to the theater to have an immersive experience, which is only really possible with immersive and well crafted visual content. But how would you feel if you went to an IMAX screening of a film that was impeccably shot, but sounded as though it had been recorded on an iPhone? Obviously, the experience of immersion would be completely lost. Not only would the soundtrack lack the level of depth and detail we have come to expect from a feature film, but it would actually be painful to endure watching. The value dissonance between the visual footage and the soundtrack would reduce the entire film to a pile of rubbish. And when you think about it, it's arguable whether we are really seeing films at all. In film editor and sound designer Walter Murch's foreword to Michel Chion's amazing sound design book, Audiovision, Murch remarks on the primacy of sound to human development. We begin to hear before we are born, 4.5 months after conception. From then on, we develop in a continuous and luxurious bath of sounds. The song of our mother's voice, the swash of her breathing, the trumpeting of her intestines, the timpani of her heart. Meanwhile, for the first 35 years of its development, cinema was ruled by the voiceless image. Murch goes on. The cinematic inversion of the natural order may be one of the reasons that the analysis of sound in films has always been peculiarly elusive and problematical, if it was attempted at all. In fact, despite her dramatic entrance in 1927, Queen Sound has glided around the hall, mostly ignored, even as she has served us up her delights, while we continue to applaud King Sight on his throne. If we do notice her consciously, it is often only because of some problem or defect. I think we can all agree that good sound is rarely noticed by filmgoers, and instead, it's realized as an unwitting expectation. Anything less than perfect will immediately be noticed by the viewer and ruin the entire experience. The job of a sound team is to deliver something that doesn't detract from the visual content in any way. Now, depending on the budget and filming context, that in itself can be a major achievement. However, the job of a sound team, when done well, is to deliver a soundtrack that bolsters the visual and pushes it into the realm of the sublime. So, how does sound actually arrive at this level? In order to achieve a great film soundtrack, a professional and diligent workflow must be observed. This workflow can be broken up into 3 parts: pre-production, production, and post-production sound. Each of these elements have a significant impact on one another, and if any of them are realized to a lesser standard, the rest of the soundtrack will be inevitably compromised. So let's look at what comprises each part of the workflow to better understand how cinematic sound gets that way. And before we go any further, please take a minute to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Ready? Let's go. A quality film soundtrack begins long before arriving on set. Pre-production sound is the work that takes place prior to shooting the film. Narrative film projects are very complex and require a lot of careful planning in order to maximize efficiency and deal with problems before they happen on the day. In pre-production, the production sound mixer will read the script and ascertain to the best of their ability the gear requirements of the production. Gear is prepped and tested to ensure smooth deployment during production. The production sound mixer communicates with post to ensure sound deliverables will conform to their needs and confirms sync workflow. More on sync later. Collaboration takes place between sound and other departments, such as costume and locations, to make recording clean dialogue easier. For example, a costume designer who has a collaborative relationship with sound will ask for feedback on fabrics, or at least give advance notice about challenging costumes. Any music playback elements must be licensed and prepped in advance of the shoot. Sound effects libraries may begin being recorded in advance of production. In an ideal world, production sound would accompany camera on location scouts in advance of the shoot. Now, this doesn't always happen, but when it does, it is certainly useful for the sound mixer to do frequency scans, flag potential noise issues, and get a lay of the land. After pre-production comes production. Production sound refers to the sound recorded during the production itself. The primary goal of production sound is very straightforward. It's to capture clean dialogue on set. Clean dialogue means dialogue that is free of any other sounds, such as footsteps, props, clothing, etc. This involves recording individual tracks, known as ISOs, of every microphone on set. Modern productions will have a wireless lav microphone on every speaking actor in a scene, as well as 1 or 2 boom operators and plant mics when necessary. These sources are all received wirelessly by the production sound mixer and recorded to redundant media. The production sound mixer mixes the booms and wireless microphones while reading the script during takes. Most often, this mix is a temp mix that will be used during picture editing prior to sound post-production. The production sound mixer sends a wireless feed to their sound team and may have an additional private line with the director. They often also send a mix to producers to listen on headsets. For scenes involving dialogue playback, such as phone calls, wireless earwigs may be deployed to cue actors without stepping on the dialogue recording. Production sound is also in charge of managing sync. Sync sound is the term applied to the production audio that is recorded separately from the camera footage, which must be synced to the footage in post. The sound team will use timecode to manage sync across recorders, slates, and timecode boxes that are attached to cameras. This helps to ensure seamless sync sound in post-production. When possible, production sound captures ambience tracks to help post-production with the sound design. In my experience, this usually doesn't get more complicated than a stereo or mid-side recording. Examples of ambience include water flowing, trees rustling in a forest, crowd wallas, etc. Due to the fast pace of production, this isn't always possible, and ambiences may be recorded or replaced later by a sound designer. Playback can happen on scenes involving music. Wireless earwigs may be used. Sometimes, only the low-frequency information is played back via a subwoofer known as a thumper. The thumper allows for dialogue to be recorded in a scene while cast and background actors dance to a beat. The low-frequency information recorded on set is filtered out in post and replaced by the music track. Even the very best production sound recordings in the world require skilled post-production to truly shine. A full post-sound workflow involves the work of many skilled professionals. Ideally, the post-sound team includes dialogue editors, dialogue cleanup, Foley artists, sound designers, ADR technicians, composers, music supervisors, and re-recording mixers. The smaller the budget of the production, the more of these roles may be performed by a single person or small team. While post workflows can vary a lot from project to project, an example workflow is generally as follows. The production sound files are first sent to the picture editor in the form of poly broadcast wave files. Poly broadcast wave files are interesting because one single wave file can be split open to reveal the ISO tracks within. The top level of the poly wave file is the production sound mix. Generally, the picture editor works exclusively from the production sound mix, and occasionally uses temp music as they work to edit the footage and achieve picture lock. Picture lock refers to the final edit of the footage before post-production sound can really begin to work their magic. After picture is locked, the footage can be sent to a dialogue editor. This is delivered via a packaged file that contains all the broadcast wave files synced to the picture locked timeline. The dialogue editor works from the production sound files to edit takes and produce the best raw tracks possible. This sometimes means splicing single words or plosive sounds from other takes into the best take. Lines of dialogue may also be shortened or have breaths removed to improve the pace of the dialogue to suit the edit. After dialogue editing comes dialogue cleanup. Dialogue cleanup refers to the processing that is applied to the production soundtracks, such as EQ, compression, limiting, and noise reduction. Professional plugins from iZotope RX feature interesting applications such as lav de-rustle, mouth de-click, and many more tricks to polish production soundtracks. In order for effective dialogue cleanup, high-quality production sound files must be delivered. You just can't make a delicious meal with bad ingredients. In some cases, dialogue cleanup is processed after scoring and sound design. Production environments can be harsh, and occasionally, some production sound recordings are not high quality enough to be used in the film. Think incredibly windy scenes, or scenes with intense action. In these cases, sync sound will still be recorded on set, and then replaced later during ADR. ADR stands for Automatic Dialogue Replacement, which is dialogue recorded by skilled technicians in a studio environment. The studio dialogue recordings are synced to the production sound, with the aim of being as close to seamless with the production dialogue as possible. Importantly, on some projects, directors know in advance that they will have to ADR entire films rather than spend too much time attempting to capture pristine production sound. But more often, ADR is avoided due to budgetary constraints, along with the difficulty of capturing realistic and emotional performances that perfectly match existing footage. Sound design refers to the creation of the non-dialogue sound world of the film. Since production sound's main focus is to capture clean dialogue, additional sonic elements must be added later to improve the overall realism of the soundtrack. This can be divided into Foley and sound effects. The distinction between Foley and sound effects is often blurry, particularly on small budget projects. However, the traditional distinction is that Foley is a performance-based art form, wherein sounds such as footsteps, cloth passes, and even fistfights are performed in real time with the film. Foley artists have unique studios with special resources for precisely this workflow. Meanwhile, sound effects are recorded and processed separately and synced to the picture by a sound editor. Think synthesized sounds like lasers, or specially recorded sounds like gunshots and explosions. Sound designers will also be tasked with recording surround ambiances with complex arrays of microphones, as these tasks are difficult to accomplish on busy film sets. The composer works with the director and sound designers to craft an original score to the film, which usually consists of a main theme, variations on a theme, and shorter musical cues. The shape of the creative relationship between the director and the composer is very different from film to film. Some films eschew an original score altogether and opt for a song score. The music supervisor may oversee meetings with the composer, director, and fellow post-production creatives. They'll often help choose and license existing tracks to suit the tone of the scenes. If licensing an original recording is too expensive, the music supervisor will oversee the production and licensing of cover recordings. The final stage of a film's post-production journey is in the hands of the re-recording mixer, who combines the dialogue, Foley, sound effects, score, and song score, and then re-records them to the final mixdown. These mixdowns are performed at large studios known as dub stages, which have been calibrated to reflect the listening experience of an ultra high-end theatrical environment. The re-recording mixer will create a multi-channel surround or Atmos mix, which can mean mixing elements to as many as 64 speakers. Mixes may be delivered for different specs, such as theatrical or streaming environments. So that's how cinematic sound gets that way. It takes so much hard work to achieve a soundtrack that's natural and immersive that it's almost hard to believe. Cheers to my fellow production and post-production sound folks around the world. If this video was useful, please like and subscribe to my channel. It really goes a long way in supporting what I do. If you'd like to send me a tip to support me directly, you can do so via paypal.me/NicholasField, or click through some of my affiliate links below, where I earn a small commission at no additional expense to you. Finally, since I almost certainly missed something or oversimplified some of these roles, I would love to hear from you in the comments section. That way we can all grow our knowledge and improve our craft. Peace.